Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I'm Grant Cohn. That's my co-host, Sybilla Bakzaza. And the Niners are in the process of putting together their practice squad, prepping for week one against the Lions, a game that I expect the 49ers to win. And if they're going to win it, it seems like they're going to win it with two quarterbacks playing, which isn't something you see really often at any level of football, but I'm excited because it looked good against the Raiders. What did you see and what are you expecting?
Well, first off, hey Grant, it's good to see you again. As far as what I saw, it seemed to be very chaotic, and it's in a good way. It seemed to keep the defense off balance. And something that Willie McGinnis and Shannon Sharp both said on their respective shows was that it's hard to game plan for that.
Yeah.
So that's what I saw, was basically they did not know what they were doing. And when they got up to the line, you could see them fumbling which play to call. They did not adapt to the insertion of Trey Lance. And when Garoppolo came back in, it's almost like they were lackadaisical, almost like they backed off the gas because they're like, oh, Garoppolo's in, he won't run.
You're right.
I think for this to work, I think Garoppolo has to occasionally move out of the pocket.
Yeah. Well, you were saying like it's so hard to prepare for. That's one of the things I like about this. Like there are coverages you can call for Garoppolo you can't call for Trey Lance. Like let's say it's 3rd and 6. For Garoppolo, a good call would be 2-man under with split safeties and man underneath. That's tough for Garoppolo to beat.
It's so much traffic in his face
Yes.
that his reads, all he's going to see is two guys here, two guys over the top, man coverage or zone coverage on the outside, and he just it slows him down. Exactly.
So that's a great call against Garoppolo on 3rd and 6. But
Absolutely.
If Trey Lance is the quarterback and he sees that, and I were the offensive coordinator, I'd say run. That's a bad call for Trey Lance because he can beat you with his legs, and all the people in coverage have their back to him. Kaepernick used to do it all the time. So you don't know how much Trey Lance is going to play. He could play 5 plays. He could play no plays. He could play 40 plays. You got to be prepared. What are you going to do on 3rd and 6 when Lance is the quarterback, when Garoppolo is the quarterback? 2 different game plans. That takes a lot of effort, and you don't have that much time.
Absolutely. And actually, Skip Bayless, he actually predicts that there will be like 20 to 25 plays for Trey Lance a game.
Yeah.
That's a really high call, but after what we saw in the first drive, he was literally on pace for that.
Well, here's the way I look at it. Every time they hand off, I'd rather have Lance handing off than Jimmy because there's a threat of Lance keeping the ball, and that creates hesitation, indecision in the defense and makes every running back more dangerous. We saw it. As soon as he came in and he handed off to Raheem Mostert, like 4-yard runs were becoming 17-yard runs. 26-yard runs.
That was one of the most impressive decoys I've ever seen when he handed the ball off to Mostert and he took off up the middle. Now, he'll have to be careful of that because if you declare yourself as a runner, you are a target. So he better be prepared physically and mentally to block in a way just to absorb the hit.
That being said, though, if you saw it from the end zone view, what was so enticing about that play, if he had kept the ball, he had blockers in front of him. I mean, they haven't really let him keep the ball on these plays yet, but they're going to ask him to, I think, 7, 8, 9, 10 times a game, and he's going to be so good. I think he's going to be as good as Lamar Jackson in a different way. He's bigger than Lamar Jackson. He's more like a bell cow zone read runner than a scat back zone read runner, which is kind of how I look at Lamar Jackson, who's Hall of Fame great, the best of all time at it. I think Lance can be someone that he can be your leading rusher, just like Lamar.
Remember what I said a couple of weeks ago? I said he was more physical than Lamar Jackson, that he could actually be physically tougher on the defense than Lamar.
Yeah.
Lamar would break your ankles. Don't get me wrong. He's the greatest dynamo we have seen to the day. But Trey Lance has the ability to punish you in ways that, he's
like Josh
huge. And he's still a kid. So, he's going to get bigger, more flexible, stronger. And he's going to pack on a couple of more pounds. When he does this, he will be unstoppable.
The way he can run over defenders is like Josh Allen, young Cam Newton. The way he can run between the tackles is like young Cam Newton, but he's faster than young Cam Newton. He's faster than Josh Allen. As a runner at the quarterback position, I've never seen someone this talented at this size. He's bigger than Vic. He's more dynamic than Colin Kaepernick was. Kaepernick was great in a straight line. He would gain speed, but this guy can run. He can make people miss between the tackles. He's more dynamic. So,
and the one thing he shares with Colin is, of course, the physical size and the ability to take and deal hit. I really love that about his game, and I have no doubt it will play into what we do, but we still need to keep him healthy.
And one last thing I want to say about this 2 quarterback system. Let's say they bring it. I want to talk about the logistics because usually we think maybe one guy gets a drive, the other guy gets a drive. No, they're splitting drives, and they're sometimes on and off after consecutive plays. So I think what's cool about Lance is you can bring him on the field and just have him hand off. Have him hand off. He doesn't have to do anything. He just comes in and everyone's freaking out. Oh my God, what's he going to do? What's he going to do? Hands off. And then like all he has to do is keep it one time out of 10 or throw it one time out of 10, and you don't know when it's coming. And you can build him up. Like basically you could have him do nothing at first, and he can just be a straight up decoy, and then give him one thing eventually. You can build him up from the ground up. I think it could work. Anything with him on the field is good, basically.
Yeah, so the thing I love about that is, as a safety, if I'm watching and I see him do a read option or something like that, or decoy the ball, I'm going to freeze. Yeah. If I'm smart, I will not bite on Mostert.
Right.
I will give that extra second of just watching him to make sure the ball is gone. If I can see the ball, because there's alignment in the way, so it's still hard to see.
Right.
But as far as like if he takes off the middle, my body language is going to be to lean just a little bit.
Right.
I'll keep my hips towards Mostert, but I'll lean towards him.
Right.
If I'm not leaning towards Mostert and he gets to my level, I will be chasing him to the sideline, and that is not a good place for a safety. Safeties are not fast enough to catch him. Once he gets up to that 20 plus miles an hour that he can clock, it's over. That's where, like you said, Trey Lance, he does not have to run. He just has to be in the mind of the defense, almost like causing paranoia. It's just that split moment hesitation. How many times do we see Mostert get 10 to 20 yards and we're like, oh, one tackle, where all of a sudden that person who got that tackle is not going to be backpedaling the same way, will not track him every single time. One of the two of them will hit a home run. Once again,
if you think about it, the Niners are great at getting the edge in the run game with speed. They have the fastest running back in the league, Raheem Mostert, and they have not Tyreek Hill, but Deebo Samuel. And that jet sweep, the end around, is devastating. And now what you have is, I feel like defenses are overplaying it because it's the best thing the Niners have going for them. I mean, it's impossible to stop Deebo and Mostert on the outside. So what do you do when defenses overplay it and cheat? Now you got Trey Lance to keep him honest. Oh, you're cheating that way? Now Trey Lance is running between the tackles, and if you saw the way they blocked it, they had guards and tackles pulling like it was a counter play. He has multiple lead blockers.
Yeah, so they're pulling this way while he's going up the middle. Exactly.
It's like a power play. They're kicking out, pinning down. I mean, this is not a finesse run. It's finesse with Deebo and Mostert. When Lance keeps the ball, it's like, it's going to be great. I'm really excited to see it.
Another thing that I noticed in this game is the O-line collectively, from top to bottom, played a whole lot better. Now, this was not against the starters. The Raiders sat 30 starters at home or something like that. So this
was evident.
It was evident.
Because against the Chargers, it was like, man, they're making these Chargers look really good. They're backups.
Right. And even if we were playing against backups with the Raiders, it wasn't necessarily that they outplayed them. It was the kind of blocking they were doing. There was a lot of downfield blocking going on, which is exactly what you need to spring and protect Trey Lance, as well as to get Mostert those extra blocks. So Trent Williams, he absolutely mauled someone. It was hilarious. Like he took the guy like 5 or 6 yards off the line of scrimmage and just bowled over him. So they're able to take out the second level with some of the linemen. So we still have some athleticism across the line. So combining this together, this will be a lethal run game. And what I want to see is a read option with a fake reverse or something like that.
Yes.
With some play action of like basically where Deebo is running a decoy behind him, and it looks like he turns to pitch and gives a read option to Mostert and then decides from there. These are the things that basically someone has to account for Deebo. That's one tackler out of the way. Someone has to account for Mostert. That's probably 2 D linemen that cannot see what's going on, and they're going to go right at him. And this is going to open up holes at the second level to put Trey Lance one-on-one with the safety more often than I think it would be with someone that does not have as much lateral agility.
Yeah, and I wanted to say, talk about Jimmy for a second here, because he's a key part of this too. And I think this is going to help Jimmy, because Jimmy's become so limited where the book's out on him. He doesn't throw downfield. He doesn't move. He's just operating in a very confined space. And it's hard for him, especially if he's the only thing a defense has to worry about game plan for. But if you also have to worry about Trey Lance and spend half your week preparing for that run game, which has nothing to do with Jimmy Garoppolo, it makes his life easier. His limited skill set isn't as focused on, you're more focused on, how do I stop this freaking run game? It's impossible. And then boom, Jimmy's just kind of like playing his game and you're not as focused on it. So I think it helps him. And then if with Trey, like he's struggling throwing these short passes, he's throwing them too hard. It needs to kind of harness this velocity. And until he can, just bring in Jimmy to throw those tiny little throws. I guess it feels like if both guys are limited right now, it makes it okay because the defense is like freaking overwhelmed with their homework. That's what I'm saying.
Absolutely. It's going to be very interesting to see how more disciplined veteran linemen. Actually really look forward to seeing how this works against the Arizona Cardinals.
Yes.
Because they've got two defensive ends that are very mature and very disciplined, and I look forward to seeing if they can run rings around them.
Here's the thing about this 2-quarterback system. I don't think it's going to last that long because no matter what they do, I'm kind of down on Jimmy. I'm sorry. I feel like he's been throwing a lot of interceptions the last maybe year and a half, and he gets hurt. So, I mean, it's a good thing to do until Lance is ready, but Jimmy just has a tough time staying on the field. So I don't think this is a long-term thing. It'll be cool.
If this run game works as advertised, as we are talking about, putting Jimmy Garoppolo in eliminates it. Yes. And all of a sudden you go back to a pocket passing game. So when you put him in, the defense might step off the gas a little bit and be like, okay, we're going to play the pass. We'll contain. We'll create a contain around the quarterback. And it's a much simpler defense when you're playing Jimmy Garoppolo. It's all about clouding his vision. Yeah. You don't have to seal the edge, which means you can drop more people into coverage. He's not going to run. Yeah. And on a side note, very, very awesome, very manly that he ran into the end zone. But
whoa, dude.
That was not the most intelligent thing he's ever done.
I mean, if you want to stay the quarterback of this team, don't do stuff like that. Tom Brady never. Do you ever see Tom Brady do that?
No. Not unless it was like. I mean, the only time you see Tom Brady do anything, not even reckless, is on a sneak, and that's because he's so good at it. Which, by the way, Garoppolo is the best sneaker since Tom Brady. He learned that from him. There's no doubt.
Did you hear what Kyle said about that touchdown run? Did you hear when he was asked? Did you?
I think he was masking. I think he was masking with his reaction. He was kind of like, "No, I hated it." In his head.
What he said was, it was great, but I'd rather him just throw to the open fullback in the flat. It's like, dude, you didn't need to do that. He was right.
Yeah, that's Kyle Shanahan's way of not approving and being like, it worked out and you're still standing.
But,
yeah. So I'm not going to really come down on you, but don't be stupid, Jimmy. That's literally, like, you can see it in his face. Like, Kyle Shanahan gives you attitude sometimes. That was him giving Jimmy G some attitude.
Yeah, and Jimmy, nice scramble, nice run. But the thing, like you said, the fact that what we're saying is this run game probably is going to be so good, they're not going to be able to take Trey Lance off the field at a certain point because just him handing off is lethal. Him handing off. It'll be interesting. I wonder if PFF or whatever advanced stat site tracks it, but yards per play, yards per rush with Lance on the field compared to Jimmy on the field, I think it's going to be a stark difference.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. Like, again, Jimmy G just being on the field, you lose that advantage. So, but we'll see what Kyle Shanahan runs. He has ways of balming the wounds. He can put a pretty big Band-Aid on a game that requires somebody to stand in the pocket. And hey, if Jimmy G wants to be reckless like this, if he wants to be reckless like this and add some diversity to his game, then I say we just milk it.
Cool. All right, let's talk about Kyle Shanahan's leadership. We talk about it a lot, but what's been your latest impression of it recently?
I'm with your father. When he reacted in a way, it was just rude, his reaction to you. And also to Matt Mayocho, is that his name?
Mayoko, yeah.
Okay. That guy, he seemed like his feelings were hurt. I felt sorry for him. He seemed like a kid that just had his hand slapped by the teacher, like Matt,
right.
like just like, oh. Like just his reaction, it was like so combative. I know that Kyle gets tired of the Jimmy questions, of the Trey questions. He's like, look, let's just let me coach. But it goes back to what I said. If you're a coach, you're the spokesperson of your team. You have to represent your team. And your father, I'm not gonna let your father say this because he said it best. You represent the team. And he named off a whole bunch of coaches, some good, some bad. Doesn't matter what you think of them, but they were more professional. So he's really become combative. This situation between Jimmy and Trey has polarized Kyle Shanahan's nippiness. Yeah. He's snappy.
Yeah.
Now, as for his leadership, that's his interaction with the media. I have never viewed media as the enemy. All they are is probing, asking the difficult questions for everyone who's watching this show and every other show out there. That's all they're doing. They're just gathering information. So you might as well give them the information you want them to say rather than have the two of us sitting here talking about, was he right? Was he wrong? Well, I think he was wrong. So let's move on to his leadership component when it comes to his quarterbacks. A couple of people said they don't think it's the job of a coach to build the quarterback up. Completely disagree. If you take a leadership, a tutorship, an instructional position, it is absolutely within your purview and your job description and your paycheck is given to you because it is your job to bolster an already confident quarterback. Jimmy G came in here like, I'm the best looking guy in the world.
Yep.
I go on super hot dates. You know, I mean,
Tom Brady's heir apparent. Yeah,
exactly. I'm a younger, better looking Tom Brady, you know, and, you know, some of it is not Kyle's fault. Some of it is his fault. I'm not saying that you have to baby these people,
right.
But what is the point of breaking them down and not showing them public loyalty? You know, whenever you see George Kittle is handling this like a pro. That's how you're supposed to. He might be in love with Trey Lance's abilities. He can't show that because the only thing he has to gain from that is bringing Jimmy down more, who is still the starter. So as long as Jimmy is the starter, and even if he's not, you gain nothing from insulting him.
That's true.
And that's what Kyle Shanahan, where he has failed a little bit, I feel, is in the Harbaugh approach, where he's pounding on the pads, slapping on the helmet, saying, let's go, let's go. That is the job of a coach. That's the job of a leader.
And real quick, the thing about Harbaugh is he understood this because I think what his experience was in Chicago. I think he felt that he didn't get the right. He wasn't nurtured in Chicago. He was looked at as a bust with the Bears. But then he went on to have success on the Colts and other places. And I think he understands how destructive coaches can be for quarterbacks and how coaches need to be pumping them up. That's what he does.
For those people who are still on the fence, who think it's not his job, let's take Coach Saleh, for instance. When Bosa and D Ford whammo someone in the backfield, he goes nuts on the sideline.
Yep.
I mean, they have to get a restraining order on him to keep him on the sideline.
This guy,
that is leadership. You don't have to do it in the style of Saleh. It could be the Seaford style, where you look at the guy and say, good job. You know, it could be as simple as that. Yes. But whatever it is, positive reinforcement never gets you any negative returns. Simple as that.
Yeah, so and I think actually, I think it's more and more important as the years go on. I think this younger generation really thrives on positive reinforcement, and Kyle's approach is old school. It's old school.
I hear that from a lot of people that it's old school, but you know what? I've had some so one of my gunnery sergeants, Gunnery Sergeant Gillespie, he was the poster of Marine OCS, the meanest gunnery sergeant that we had in the whole Marine Corps. Mm-hmm. He would yell at you, veins popping out of his. I mean, he was huge. This big German-looking guy, massive guy. He was everything that you would see in a movie, like Full Metal Jacket, only worse.
Okay.
But at the end of the day, he'd drop the big boy voice, and he would come over to you, and he'd be like, "Those are some pretty good pull-ups. You were weak at that to begin with, but I've seen it. Last 2 weeks, give me less and less reason to yell at you." So even the most old-school, mean, war-minded individual still says good job, and literally will get pumped up. Like, pull-ups were always my thing. So when I started getting up there in number, he would go nuts every time I would break 20 or 25 and be like, that's what I want to see. This was the same guy who was yelling at me since day one. So Kyle Shanahan can be old school and be tough and toughen you up, but it does not preclude the positive reinforcement and the public. No gunnery sergeant and chief or officer I ever served with would publicly say something like, well, I don't really know Sybilla's our girl anymore. You know, I think she's regressed.
She's regressed a little bit. Yeah.
Right. It would be like, well, we have some things to work on, but I see a couple of good things, and we're going to work on things. That's all they would say.
Yeah.
Right. And there's some pride that Shanahan should take in the 49ers organization by not airing his laundry out.
See, to me, Kyle, when he airs his laundry out, that's him protecting his, I don't have a nicer way to say it, ego. You know, he's more loyal to his ego and being right than the organization that he works for, because he's worked for a lot. And I think the attitude. Remember, it's not just Kyle; it's the Shanahans. They're a little team. They're a little corporation, like the Bosas and the Mannings. They take the long view. They understand that they've both worked for a lot of organizations, and you kind of need to protect yourself and stick to your guns, and that's what they do. So I'm just saying, that's his thing. He's never going to like protect the Niners brand the way that Lynch does.
Lynch is a leader, and he's one of those guys that almost walks into a room and says, well, I'm no expert. Everyone doing a great job. Love this organization. Carry on. He's like your classic captain. He really is. He's so hands-off when he has to be, and yet he has presence when he's there. Now, Kyle Shanahan, he is a coach. There's a difference. He has to point out when you're wrong. He has to get on you when you do things. And you know what? Sometimes people do boneheaded things. He's going to, in his own way, chastise them, but he definitely needs to work on his public reaction. It's kind of like being a father. You don't just have a fight with your kid or you are disappointed in your kid, you go talk about it with the school board. You keep it in house, you keep it inside, and as far as everyone else knows, everything is perfect.
And when people ask you about your kid, how's your kid doing? It's kind of disappointing.
They've regressed.
Not really what I wanted. It's not really the kid I wanted. I mean, he's not really that, athletic. He's not that smart, really. He could have been smarter. He got a B on his, like, what if your parents talked about?
Yes, I'm thinking about trading up and getting a new one. Exactly.
Like, you could be right, but you don't talk about your kid like that publicly. Or I'm just saying, like, I'm with you. And the other guy, Chris Kosarik, who's like the loudest guy on the team, like seemingly the meanest guy on the team. If you actually hear what he says, it's all positive. It's all just yelling how much he likes what you're doing. And if he is mad,
we can't even quote what he says. I love it.
Yeah. Anyway. If he yells at you to correct you, he makes you do it again so that he can praise you. Like, he wants to praise you.
Yeah, like literally the way he does it, like when they were doing the dummy targets, he said, effing kill it, kill it. Like his way of juicing you up is literally to draw more out of you, not to chastise you like, some locker room dad or something like that. And
then when you do it right, he like loses his mind. He's like, yeah, that's right. It's like, great. I wish someone would pump me up like that. It only makes you better. You only want to prove people right. Some people need to be proving people wrong. That can work sometimes too, but it also helps.
So I guess what we are saying is the bottom line is that Kyle Shanahan is a guru. He's brilliant. We like him. But what we want to see is a little bit more public empowerment and endorsement of the people he has. Because if you don't want to endorse them publicly, don't have them.
Yeah, agree. And like
the only thing you gain is bringing them down. Doesn't matter. You could be Iron Man. You could be Superman, Wonder Woman. It doesn't matter. If someone is constantly saying negative things, quippy remarks, things like this, it only brings you down. This is not about being tough. This is almost like, don't bully Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah, it's like if I had an editor who called me every day. I was like, I don't like this. And it was like every time I submitted something, is like, okay, let's go over your beginning. I don't like this transition. I disagree with this opinion. It's like, I can't do this. You're making me, now I don't even want to write. Like, this is not fun anymore. As opposed to someone who actually says, oh, I like this. Oh, I like this, what you did here. I like what you did here. Now let's talk about this. And can we work on this together? I want to work with someone like that. I really don't want to work with the first one. And I hope Kyle's not that. I'm not saying he is, but I hope.
That's exactly how my gunnery sergeant did it. He literally used to say to me, hey, how can your pull-ups be so good, but your push-ups suck? Yeah. Like he would say that to me. He's like, come on now. He's like, I've seen your swim, I've seen your run, and you're saying, what's wrong with your push-ups? You forget to do them? And he makes a joke out of it, but it's kind of like a warning as well, because I can hear it in his voice. It's like, Sybilla, don't fuck up. Excuse my language. Sorry. I'm quoting him at this point. I'm sorry. Right. But literally, that's what it's about.
The coach says coaches' jobs are to protect the team, not the public relations gurus. Not be public relations gurus. Media is not innocent. They poke, prod, and stir controversy. Let's not act like the media is there out of the kindness of their hearts. They compete for viewership.
I like the coach, first off. He always has something cool to say. Hell of a donation, I must say.
Yeah, thank you.
So he's right. Across the board, we are not saying that they have to be public relations gurus, but they are still spokesmen for their team.
Right.
They still reflect upon their team. Just like when I was in the military, I don't truly answer to the civilian population, but when I meet them, I do the best I can to make my uniform and the United States Navy look good. That is my job. That is absolutely my job, to reflect credit upon my nation and upon my branch. And lastly, upon my command, and lastly, upon myself. So that is the same in any job. If I meet you, coach, and let's say you're working for ADT or you're working for Boeing, and I like you, I'll be like, Boeing, cool corporation, I know a guy there. So that you want to leave a good taste in people's mouth when it comes to your organization. We're not asking him to protect the team. We're asking him to coach the team. And in order, you're a coach, you know this. You know there's a time and a place to come down on your guys, but you didn't put in your comments what your team is doing wrong. So if I know that if I talk with you one-on-one, you're not going to rat your players out with me unless you're looking for my inputs. That's what we're saying. Just give the public a good image about Jimmy Garoppolo. Cut him. If he gets to that, just cut him. But until then, it is your job to mind his ego. You have to build your guys up because you get the most out of them.
Also, hold on. What he says, let's not act like the media is there out of the kindness of their hearts. Dude, let's not act like the team is inviting the media out of the kindness of their hearts.
They're required.
Not only are they required, they're in the business of being covered. They want media coverage. They don't want no one to cover their games. If ESPN called the Niners and are like, look, we want to send 20 writers to the game next week, the Niners would do cartwheels. They want all the coverage. They want all the writers from ESPN, all the writers from The Athletic, all the radio stations to come to their games and not other. I mean, they want coverage. I'm good for the 49ers. So are all these writers. I mean, it's a symbiotic relationship. Are we innocent? Depends on what you mean on innocent, but we're not out to get the team. When they do well, we do well. If the Niners are 4-13 this year, there's less interest. There's less money to go around. I really would like the Niners to win this year. Last year was hard. So I disagree with you, Coach, but I appreciate you on that every day, pretty much. I appreciate you. Thank you. Let's move on.
Yeah, I definitely agree that the media is good for them. We are a free platform for them. I mean, it's the same thing with my modeling for Hot Topic. Hot Topic gets even more from me than I get from them. I have the honor of modeling for them, but every one of my followers says, where do you get that dress? So, yeah.
All right, so we've been talking about quarterbacks for a while. Let's not anymore. Special teams. What's really important on this team? We've been complaining about it for a while, or not complaining, but pointing out where it could be better. What have you seen from this unit now through 3 preseason games?
Oh, the first and the second. Okay, so let's go back to, let's write off the Chiefs game. It was miserable. But looking at the Chargers game, there were a couple of good returns. But then I go to the Raiders game. I'm not reading too far into the Raiders game. People did their jobs. It's as simple as that. But they were playing against second, third, and less stringers. So it's hard to formulate an opinion, but I can see a couple of guys. I want in Simba Webster. I wish he could have made the practice squad.
He got picked up by another team?
Yep, he did, along with the Indiana State. By the way, Indiana State, not Kansas State product.
Right.
Yeah, Griffith. He got picked up. Kind of wish he had made the practice squad, but we are LBU. As I said, these were a couple
Jonas
of guys.
Griffith, they traded. Elijah Sullivan got picked up.
That's right.
Yeah.
Was it Hilliard or Sullivan? So Hilliard made the team.
Both of them. Oh, Hilliard. Yeah. Sorry.
He did.
Hilliard,
Did he not?
I'm sorry. I got confused.
No, it's okay. We are Linebacker University. There are so many names floating around to remember. Yes. But anyway, there were a couple of things that I feel we lost to the special teams that are concerning to me. The one highlight is Mitchell. I think Mitchell has the potential to be a good returner. But again, I'm not going to read too far into a third preseason game where the Raiders didn't even take it seriously.
Yeah, that's true.
It's hard to make a summation on this.
What I liked is I was watching Elijah Mitchell. He looks like a really good special teams guy, not just as a returner. He had a nice return, but he also early in the game had a nice tackle, like I think at the 15 on a kick return.
They played him as a gunner, correct?
Yes, he's a lot like Mostert, who was great at that. He was one of the best gunners in the league.
Mostert was vicious.
Exactly. And this kid has got that 4.3 speed, and he's vicious too. He's got no fear. So I think he's going to be a nice asset. He might have made the team as a special team.
Design Mitchell and Mostert in the Super Bowl on special teams gunning. That would be interesting. That's a muff in the making.
Yep, absolutely. So also Robbie Gould making kicks. Mitch Wishnowsky pinning.
The 75-yard punt was out of his hand. That was only 2 bounces. And honestly, I did not like his performance in the Chiefs game. So I needed to see this from him to see him show us that he could get, because there was like no hang time and no distance in his first game. They were horrible. It stood out as a problem. And I was like, wait a minute, this is not the guy we drafted. But in this last game, that 75-yarder, it had hang time and distance. I haven't seen too many punts like that in my life. And that was not the bounce. It just bounced twice. And the guy batted it out of bounds on top of it.
Yeah, that's true. All right, let's move on. The secondary. This is your specialty. What are you seeing from this group through 3 preseason games?
It's a good group. I'm not surprised they kept Hufanga because they feel like they have an investment in him. And I know they saw a lot of good box work from him. Again, he's not someone I want to see in man coverage. I don't think they're really going to ask that of him. But I definitely like the group they kept. I am not surprised they let HaHa Clinton-Dix go.
You saw that coming. He's a freelancer.
He was, and I don't know if that's so much his problem. I mean, he kind of came in late, and he's being asked. But the thing is, he should have stayed in his lane. What he did in the end zone, that's why he got cut.
Yeah,
that right. showed them right there that it plain and simple. Can't trust him. You cannot trust him. Exactly.
And it's like also the fact that he was available so late in August means he'll be available forever. I mean, you can just give him a playbook and tell him if someone gets hurt, we'll call you up. But yeah, we're not really worried about you being, and he's not going to get signed by anyone else, is he?
Yeah, exactly. And I was actually surprised that he did not have a good showing with Dallas. As far as when I say I'm surprised he did not work out there. It seemed like he had no competition and he still could not make the cut. He's played better teams. He's played better games, I should say. He's played better games in his career, so I'm not really sure what's happened to him at the back end of his career. But starting at the top, Tart gives me some concern just because, I don't know how much he hurt himself on that tackle, what he hurt, whether he just kind of toughed it up. Because if I was him and I had broken something, I wouldn't tell anyone. At this point in his career, it could lead to a cut in an injury settlement.
True. That is true.
So that gives me a little bit of concern because on the other side, we have Ward. And I'm a huge Ward fan, but we need a healthy season from him. Not surprised we keep Emery Thomas because, again, they feel like they have invested in him, but he needs to be the backup to the backup to the backup at this point. Lenoir, I think that if Mosley goes down, I think he's somewhat serviceable. I think he had a good preseason. I saw some aggression in the Raiders game. So he was in position on the 2 times he got burned, and he never turned his head around. And that's what I did not want to see. Game 1, he would not turn his hand around. Game 2, he got it around. He played lights out. And in this 3rd game, he kind of slipped back into some of his old habits. I think it's easy to clean up. But overall, I feel like we don't have any great backups. We don't have a whole lot of depth in the secondary. And Hufanga is a great player. He's exciting. He will get better. I think his game speed will increase his ability to man coverage. But the bottom line is I just don't think there's no one behind Tart and Ward.
Right. That's true. I like that they have
perhaps they move Marcel Harris back out of necessity.
I don't think they will, but they do have Jared Maiden on the practice squad. I like that. I want to talk about corner for a second. What I think is interesting about these corners, like Diamador Lenoir had the much better preseason. He looked good in the preseason, except he gave up one catch against the Raiders. But the thing is, when I watch him in practice and they're in the one-on-one drills, Lenoir gets worked. And Ambry Thomas is the one who can actually match up with Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk and win sometimes. Lenoir, I've never seen him beat Deebo Samuel or Brandon Ayuk one-on-one. Now, that's not necessarily the end-all, be-all of projecting success in the NFL, but I think it's interesting that Thomas can win in those settings, and he looks so out of place in a real football game. Maybe it's the techniques they're teaching him are a little bit different. Maybe he's just a little rusty because he didn't play last year, but I wouldn't write him off yet.
Yeah, for him, the only thing they have to do is teach him how to get over the top. Teach him how to backpedal and stay in position because he's getting worked at the second, like in his second step. From the line of scrimmage, his technique is still pretty good from what I've seen. It's when he gets deeper into the secondary and it's still his job to be in close coverage. That's where he's getting into trouble. These are techniques, though, that are going to get burned for huge yardage situations in a regular game, and that kind of gives me concern. No, they can't give up with him. He was a project to begin with. Like you said, he does not have a lot of game time. He's like the cornerback version of Trey Lance. He's strong. He has great athleticism. He needs more game time.
He wants to play a particular style. He wants to be in the wide receiver's face playing press coverage. He sees himself as like Xavier Howard or Jalen Ramsey, even though he's not. But that's the kind of – he doesn't want to play off. He's never done that. And he's basically just played press man and cover 2. It seems like if you put him in a system and let him play 2-man where you had 2 safeties, one guy basically over the top and protecting him from getting beat deep because we've seen him get beat down that sideline a couple of times. He should be okay. It would help if he could get his head turned around or his hand up at the catch point, one of the two. Otherwise, he's going to struggle. I don't know. I still think I've seen him win against Deebo one-on-one. I think he's got promise. I'm curious about Lenoir.
A lot of people think that zone coverage is easier. It should be because it takes away some of the speed of the receiver for you. It allows you to sit back on your heels a little bit, but it requires more discipline. You can't bite on things. You have to stay in your lane. You have to be in communication with your mic, depending upon which side you play. Your linebackers, you have to be able to communicate. And you don't see it a lot in the game because, as spectators, we're just kind of watching the ball fly around. They talk to each other in the middle of the play. They will give out calls to each other that require communication. Thomas doesn't seem to give those calls. Have you noticed that?
No, but that's a good point.
I have not. I mean, I may have missed them if someone here has noticed, but for the few times that I've really focused on his face, I don't see him like yelling anything. Like you can see when a guy yells, his chest moves. Right, his chest moves. He's just like, I hope I survive this play. I hope I survive this play.
Right.
he needs to kind of relax, I think.
Yeah.
Right? He's transfixed by his own paranoia.
Yeah.
But you can be bad, but play with confidence as a corner. And one of the things Deion Sanders once said, Neon Dion, he says it best, primetime, I love him. He says you have to have a short memory as an NFL cornerback.
That's right.
You have to get over it.
Yeah.
The reason that people like Megatron and Jerry Rice and all these guys are so good is because it is their job to burn even people like Primetime. And they have a few times in their life. I've seen Jerry Rice burn Primetime. It doesn't mean that he's still not one of the best corners in NFL history. You just have to be. That's where Thomas is. He's in the rookie's position of, I got to impress the coaches. I have to show what I can do. I think he's kind of forgetting, I'm on a team here. They can give me a crutch because a good safety and a good linebacker, which we have, communicating to him will up his game speed. So right now, I think he actually needs to work perhaps on his zone coverage.
Okay, so that's the big concern in the defense is the depth in the secondary. The big concern in the offense, other than the fact that they don't have a full-time quarterback just yet, is the depth on the offensive line or the offensive line in general. What did you see from it against the Raiders?
Again, it's a preseason game. Playing third stringers, it's hard to judge. They destroyed them with their first team, as they should, but they were not exactly playing the Raiders' best players. And okay, the Raiders, they say, have a top 10 offense, but talking about their defense, I'm not overly impressed with them, even when it's their first team on the field. This is a team where the 49ers should have had their way with their run game, and they did. So as far as I'm concerned, they just checked the box. I'm not impressed. I really am not. They did the job they were supposed to do. It looked great. They weren't playing first stringers. But what I saw that was encouraging was the O-line sticking to their assignments. But they're not facing Joey Bosa's and Chandler Jones and J.J. Watts and people like that and Bobby Wagner's. They're not facing these guys that will get inside your head and force you to leave your assignment or break your technique down. We're not going to know how good this O-line really or bad, how good or bad they really are until they play these teams.
Yeah.
But I did see them work with more cohesion. I saw much more downfield blocking, as you pointed out. They did this almost pulling the guards and running the other way. There was good deception. I think Shanahan, just like the quarterback, he can mask bad O-line play by pulling his guards and getting all this motion in the face of the defense.
That's what I wanted to say.
To confuse them. There was a lot of motion in this game.
Misdirection.
That's the word. Exactly, misdirection.
It's not like they're like lining up and saying, okay, we're running power. You know it. I know it. We're going to kick down, block down, kick out, and just power through for 4 yards. That's not what they're trying to do.
These are not the days of Frank Gore. That's for certain.
Absolutely not. They're like, we have no idea where the ball's going to go. You got the jet sweep coming this way. You got Mostert coming this way. You got Lance potentially keeping the ball. Like, just try to find it first before. I mean, so that's going to make Alex Mack, all these guys look phenomenal because they're going to be out in space with really great blocking angles on people who don't even know where the ball is.
Absolutely. Would you have kept anyone over Tom Compton? Because they waived. Now, they might bring him back with the exemption, the roster exemption for the international program, Alfredo Gutierrez. But
yeah, no, he can come back. But no, I mean, one guy, Dakota Shepley, he's younger. He was waived, and he didn't clear waivers. He went to the Seahawks. Just seems to me if the choice is, it seems to me like, look, I'm not even saying who's better, Dakota Shepley or Tom Compton, but Shepley's younger. He got picked up. You should have known that there was a market for him. Compton, if you cut him, doesn't have to go through waivers. He's a vet, and I don't think anyone wants him. So you could have signed. You could have had both of them. If you keep,
you could have maneuvered this.
Yeah, you can put Compton on the practice squad, and then he can be one of the two people you call or whatever. There was a way to have both, and what? Like, how did you not know that Shepley was coveted? How'd you not know?
And I think the brilliance of what you just said is that by doing this the other way around, by letting Compton go because he's a vet.
Yeah.
So he might not be that good, but he's familiar with the offense. So one injury goes down, pop. Now, I feel like we are in the position of relying on someone, Colton McKivitz, basically. You know, who are we going to bring in?
He's gone too.
Where did he go?
They cut him. I don't know.
No, but I mean, like, will he quit? Did he clear waivers?
Oh, I think he did. Yeah, because he's terrible.
That's what I mean. So basically, they're going to have to go back and get someone that they have kind of given up on, or they will get a veteran from another team who may not be a former Brown under Shanahan or a former Redskin or Washington football team or a former Falcon or something like that. Mm-hmm. We may not be able to get someone who's familiar with the system.
Yeah, that's true. I just feel like what's troubling about this unit is if they get in situations where they have to pass block, they're in trouble because McGlinchey is the same guy. Brunskill is worse, and Alex Mack is old. And Tomlinson's solid at best in pass protection. But if they can get Lance in the game as much as possible and really commit to running 35, 40 times a game, this offensive line is going to look phenomenal, and it's going to get really high grades. It's going to look really good. Yeah.
If they stayed healthy. So yeah, I like the people we kept. I definitely do for the most part. Aaron Banks, I am still concerned about just because I'm not so sure he's a scheme fit. But with all of the motion, as you say, perhaps that will mask his lack of ability to move.
Yeah, and again, I'm not exactly sure we know what this offense is going to look like this year. We associate Shanahan with like outside zone from under center. I mean, it's going to be a lot different this year. It's going to be like more the stuff we saw against the Raiders where you have counter, you have the guard and the tackle coming across, leading for Lance, and a jet sweep going the other way, or Raheem Mostert going the other way. That's stuff the league hasn't seen before. It's going to be really cool, and maybe Banks is a fit for that. But dude, you got to get on field first before we see that.
But the thing with that is that if Banks is not, if he moves faster, if he's capable of being more maneuverable, these kind of things became more lethal. So again, he will still not be doing the job to the best of his own ability.
Right.
The potential is not there.
Yeah.
But if he sticks to his assignment, he's not going to be a bust. I don't think he will be.
No, I don't think so either.
And I'm glad that McKivitz is gone, to be honest with you, because I'm not saying you cannot get your value at that round, but seldom does an offensive lineman from that. I feel like that you get what you pay for, and it didn't work out. I think they just need to cut baits and move on, which is what they did.
Absolutely. Yeah. All right, Sybilla, I got to drive down to Santa Clara and get in a press conference with John Lynch to hear why he kept Tom Compton. I think it's going to be about 18 questions about Tom Compton. It's going to be the Tom Compton day. But Sybilla, this was a great show. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. I'll be back later on tonight with Jesse for 49ers After Dark. I'll see you guys in.